All right, hello. Welcome. I am coming to you live from Zion National Park. I've started over a week ago with my family on a 3-month road trip. Sold most of our things in Denver, and we're cruising the country west at this point. And so I'm holding the iPad, and I like to talk with my hands. So if the picture gets a little sketchy, shaky, I apologize in advance. Here we are at week 6. Last week with Desmond Tutu's book. It's a very, very rich book. We could have spent, a semester just talking about that and the issues therein. Forgiveness, justice, race relations, all these things, all these topics are immense topics. They're very, very complex, and we, as deep as our conversations went, and they did go deep, I appreciate all of your efforts to take these topics very seriously. We just barely scratched the surface, and I spend almost 2 weeks on that book in a face-to-face class, and at last you'll have to sift through it on your own or in groups or whatever, or come to me in the fall and let's talk about it then face-to-face. But this week coming up, we're entering into Latin America, and the 2 readings that we have are designed to give us a bit of the history, the overall history of Christianity and colonization in the Americas. So we return to David Chittister to get a colonial or post-colonial perspective on European colonization of the New World, quote unquote. I would use my fingers, but again, I'm holding this screen. And then we have Dussel, who's this Argentinian philosopher, and as you're going to read, he's going to give us a ton of names. All of the names and figures that he has in this chapter of this book are particular, most of them anyway, are particular to Latin American philosophy and theology and history in general. Dussel's text is quite a bit dense because, again, he is a philosopher, and so he just jumps right in, and we're reading the end of the book, so we assumed we've been tracking with him this whole time. Chittister does a good job of touching on some tensions between spreading Christianity in the New World and the other cultural, economic, and even religious conflicts or clashes that happen as a result of this movement, right? So starting with Columbus and moving through. And he touches on a few very important figures and doesn't give them much time. For instance, Bartolomé de las Casas. De las Casas is a fantastic figure. So if you get a chance this week, look him up and use him in our discussions. We wouldn't necessarily have human rights laws if it weren't for Bartolomé de las Casas. So he's an important figure. Many people have read or written several important books about him. He has an autobiography that's fantastic. Read it if you get a chance. He's a very, very important figure, and Chittister only briefly mentions him. Chittister also talks quite a bit about sorry, I'm staring off at the river. It's distracting me. Chittister brings up some of the tensions that happen as a result of trying to spread a Europeanized version of Christianity in this place that's so remote, so far away from all of the power and social structures of the ecclesial church in Europe. Right? So even Africa and Asia as continents are closer to home for Europeans than the New World is, the Americas. And this itself breeds several things. It breeds some vigilante type justice, right? So who's gonna come and tell me, I'm not supposed to be doing this or that? All right, send the European authorities over it. They're not going to make it, and if they do, they'll never find me anyway, right? So there's a lot of that going on. And at the same time, Christianity is beginning to take root, and Chittister gives us a few snapshots of how Christianity is taking root in an indigenous kind of way among the Mayan, the Aztec, not so much the Aztec, but various people groups in Central and South America. Now when we get to Dussel, Dussel's Argentinian, grew up in Argentina, he now teaches at the University of Mexico, teaches philosophy. Dussel, he's gonna play with a lot of the structures that Chittister sets up. So I mean, I read them in that order. You can read them in whichever order you want. It doesn't really make a difference. The interesting thing about Chittister is he wants to say, okay, this takes seriously the colonial model that was set up back in 1492, right? And how that's left its legacy, or it left a residue of these, he calls them, what does he call them, binaries or dichotomies. Dichotomies between this or that. So have a read for that, and realize that what he's doing is he's saying these are colonial leftovers that we're still reeling from the effects of today, we being Latin Americans. And these are some avenues that we can go. And one of the interesting things he says near the very end, try to catch this if you can, isn't it a movie? Is tradition, he says, is never static. It's never a static thing. It's always changing. Have that in mind as you think about the sort of colonization and the spread of Christianity in the Americas, right? And this sort of bold or brazen attempts to enforce an orthodoxy and enforce this is the correct form that Christianity should be. And let's wrestle with those questions of what does it mean for a tradition to change, to move, to grow, to shift, right? And still maintain a sense of its own. So have a good week. I look forward to our discussions once again. Week 6, we're on the downhill side.